author, poet, Irish poet, born in 1856 and died in 1925. His name is George Bernard Shaw. If you just consider Bob's position and impact in life, you will realize that he was always about making impact. He wasn't about presence. He wasn't about celebrity, although he was a celebrity. He wasn't about all that. He was about making impact. You could hear the impatience in his voice, especially in the latter days of his broadcasting, that he had with anybody who was marginalizing anyone. He was for Black empowerment. He was for true inclusive economies. He was for everybody getting a fair share in life. And if you look at the presenters that he worked with, whether it's Skumba and on Kaya FM, that he brought in as a comedian, whether it's Eugene Koza, I think when Eugene Koza became known as a comedian, he was brought in by Bob to be part of the presentation, whether it's Gully Roberts, he always was happy to take somebody else and make him part of his glory. He wasn't intimidated by anyone. He wasn't shy or afraid to bring other people in on the party. And when you look at how many people he was able to bring in and group, you will understand the importance of his contribution in the 51 years of his life. I want to just say this. If you want to summarize Bob, to me, every time I listen to him on air, there's a song that comes to mind. And it was very telling in the lyrics. The song was by Fat Larry's Band. It was called Act Like You Know. And you know, Bob was very big on, hey, I didn't go far in school, man, but I'm always learning. And Act Like You Know is about putting on your best face, putting on your best clothes, stepping up when you are feeling at your lowest. And at this point, when all of us are feeling at our lowest, I think we can all act like we know what Bob thinks of all of us. We can all act like we know how this whole story will pan out, as sad an episode as it is, as tragic as his death was. Let's act like we know how it will all pan out. Welcome again, and thank you to BPI Foundation, Broad Pool of Ideas, for organizing this memorial service. I'm going to call upon the first speaker, President of the Black Business Council, Bob Manzini, Sandile Zungu. Are you there?
I will be playing music while I'm waiting him to come on. He is trying to dial in through his laptop. Okay.
Okay. I would say let's give him a time to dial in.
I am available.
There you go, always on time. I mean, I was very surprised. Okay, let's give over to Sandile Zungu, one of the young dynamic South Africans as well, to say a few words at this memorial service. Welcome, Manzi.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you for being such an effective program director. I think your opening remarks resonate with me. I'm sure resonate with quite a lot of people here. And I must thank the organizers of this event for seeing it fit to place on the program my organization, the Black Business Council. But first and foremost, I must convey my heartfelt condolences to the family of Bob for the loss that I'm sure they can appreciate. It's affected the whole nation. Their loss is definitely our loss, and they must be strengthened in knowing that he is definitely in the right place, where there are no pains, where there are no lamentations, where there is rejoicing. He's definitely in the right place, and he's now among angels who will guide them through this very treacherous world. My remarks will be very short, because I'm not talking as a friend. Of course, all of us will regard Bob as a friend, all of us who have met him. He's one of those people who will have made everyone feel, geez, I know him better than the next person. But certainly I'm talking here as representing an organization that could count on Bob to give us the airtime, that we all scramble for when we've got topical issues that we would like to disseminate and to influence the discourse, which is a very hard fought for discourse in this country. What was quite remarkable about Bob is that he was a very versatile person. There's no question about it. When he broke into the airwaves, he was a music man. Even the nickname, the Jammer, does not talk to talk format. It talks to the music format. And he made that his own. There are very few people that I can talk of in this country who have really very ably migrated from the music format, being the music man or music people, to becoming the talk gorillas, as it were. And Bob was definitely one of them. There are people like Tim Modise, who during his early days will have been a very strong personality on the music format, but he transformed himself. People like Shero Twala, and I've listened to his friends Ernest Pillay. Quite remarkable is that this is generation that really broke into the airwaves in the 80s. They've actually done very well for himself, and Bob was one of them. He actually identified Black economic empowerment as a niche for himself. There are people who break into talk and want to be controversial and want to climb onto the bandwagon of bashing Black people who break into business, who break into the airwaves to smash those who want to do business with government. And Bob was definitely not one of those. There were incidents when, as a Black Business Council, we were misunderstood in the public arena. And we knew that one, Power FM as a platform will give us the airtime that we deserved. And Power FM will have identified Bob as the host of the morning show as the right platform for us to be heard. And did he do justice to our cause? Absolutely. So at this time, it's very befitting to also thank Power FM. I'm not sure if the chairman is here, given him curry, for being ever so committed to the cause of Black economic empowerment. And we thank you wholeheartedly. And we thank Bob for having been the agent through which Power FM could then live up to its promise to the cause of transformation. And with those few words, it's important to say, maybe talk about my own personal experience. When he was at a previous station, Kaya, and he came to basically to rural to Lawton Ndlovu's memorial lecture, which was held at the Dimension Data campus. And that memorial lecture was addressed by the then Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke. And after the speech, as it happens, the media people then want to have one-on-one interviews. He asked Dikgang if he could spare 5 minutes to go on air live. And he asked me, at the time I was Secretary General of the Black Business Council, to also be on hand. And at first I was saying, just let me listen to this one. Bob is a radio man, is a music man, and I'm not accustomed to him dealing with serious business issues. But he really made me sweat, absolutely. And fortunately, I'd heard him ask that day Moseneke very tough questions on his speech and on his experiences with Lawton Ndlovu and the philosophy of Black economic empowerment. I was thoroughly impressed. And what he said on that day, I think he was in the company of his daughter, I think his daughter was breaking into the media space, and he said, Sandile, I would like you to meet my daughter and, help him or help her in whatever way that you can. I said, oh, thank you, Bob. Well, suffices to say, I haven't met his daughter since that time. But when he passed on, I was then reminded how much obligation we have to help people like Bob actually fulfill their soulful wishes about their own children. Wherever that daughter is right now, I don't know what she's doing. If she's listening, I think she must know that there are people like myself who took Bob's wishes very seriously. And the fact that Bob, as a BPI, offered his services for free. I'm gone.
No, you are not.
Oh, okay. That he offered his services for free, was very touching. And, I'll be quite keen to meet that daughter of Bob, and maybe even if it's a case of just guiding her, not saying so in a condescending manner, in a patronizing manner, but all of us have got needs. But it's very important that Bob, as he's departed, he knows that there are people who are there to look after his legacy, whose legacy includes children as well. With those few words, I wish the rest of the proceedings success, and in particular, I wish the family of Bob Mabena well in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Manzini. You would have tasted Bob. His interviewing style was very friendly because he was a friendly person, but he didn't mince his words when he didn't get the answer he was looking for. But I'm glad that you've always been available to also give interviews. By the way, in the media, we don't operate by ourselves. We also need guests. Sometimes guests are not forthcoming and they are hostile towards you. So we are thankful that you were able to be friendly towards the media and be available to explain things, even when discussions were tough and they might be putting you on the spot. I'm going to move to another media colleague of mine, a sister, a friend, and also a former colleague of Bob's, and she's been around. She is going to say a few words in tribute to Bob. Let's all welcome the inimitable Iman Rapeti.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you to Sandile as well for setting, I think, a really great context. When the news came to me, the first thing that reacted was my heart, because I've seen Bob recently. He called me in April saying, we're at a point in our nation where I feel like we just need to return to a sense of quiet, where we're feeling really depressed and hurt about the impact of lockdown on so many families across our country. And we really need a little sermon. And so if anyone, has been in the habit of listening to Power Talk over the years, this is something that we began to do in writing these letters to our listeners. And Bob said, come in and please share that with us. So one of the last times that I interacted with him. So I'm not going to take up too much time, Victor. I just, as I say, my heart responded, and I sat on Monday, just kind of digesting the loss, thinking what the family must be feeling. And I'll just go straight into what was on my heart and mind. But just to start off by saying that this is such a hard time for all of us who hold notions of immortality. And immortality are like grains of sugar in a glass of water. Soon what is formed will disappear for a while and it will reform in another way. And my heart goes out particularly to Eucharist and the children, the family, the relatives and friends, and Winston, by the way, who has had to be so strong in keeping the nation informed while his own heart has been broken. It's such a privilege to have known Bob as a friend and as a colleague. The funny thing is, we know that we will not be here forever. We know that we will not be able to hold the ones we love forever. And each time one of us leaves, we are painfully reminded of that. But what happens with us as human beings, we forget and we do all the things that keep us in our small prisons of neglect and ingratitude, or in our short-lived bubbles of security and insularity. And reeling as we are from Bob's passing, wondering if last week this time he could know that just days from then he'd be becoming a memory. We realize that we are all becoming and moving towards an ending of life as we know it. And looking at Bob's legacy, the hundreds of ways in which he impacted all of our lives, we turn to our own legacies and consider what the undeniable, compelling thing is that we will be leaving behind for others. How might we be remembered and eulogized? But as these thoughts raced through my mind for his family and his children, those who looked into his eyes and said, I love you, I connected with what his soul might have been experiencing in between those moments between leaving and staying. And these are the thoughts that came to me. I am no longer me. My breath has separated from me, rising into the atmosphere like infinite atoms of sacred dust, leaving behind the form that has held me for so long. Is this freedom? I whisper a last goodbye to all the places I played as a child, looking down those streets, hearing my own childlike, then grown-up laughter rise above dusky and shadowed light poles, across the neighbors' yards and into the ears of my own children. My own children. Feel me reaching out, trying to touch those who hold meaning for me, hoping they can feel my warmth just one final time. Know just one more time the love for them that fills me and floods me with tears. I see with dimming view all the places and all the people that shaped my destiny, this place of audacious dreams, exquisite joy and searing pain. In all the forms my human life has taken, son, boy, man, father, lover, brother, I have been changing. And this separation pulls me undeniably to a strange but warm place that makes me feel lighter than I ever have before. I am never gone, not really, because love will always reach me here. And to all of us who remain behind to honor Bob, let us remember his life, the nuance, the complexity, the huge impact he had on us, and make a little time to play some music in the house of mourning.
Wow, Iman. I remember your monologues when you started your shows. At first, they were a little odd because I didn't know anybody on radio who started a show with a monologue. But as time grew by and the monologue would be followed by a song, or I don't remember which sequence they came in. Now, when I hear you do this one for Bob, it's a lot more poignant. Thank you very much. And isn't it amazing that both you and Sandile, although you knew Bob from totally different perspectives, said one thing about him in common, his children. And I know that Bob was quite a sociable man. He had wide and vast networks. He didn't lose his cool very easily, but the only time I ever saw him tweet like somebody who had lost his cool was when there was something involving his daughter. And so it just tells you something, that when Sandile said his legacy must be protected, we must not just forget his children as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Somebody is doing a Ronald Reagan on us. He's appearing on air when he's not aware he's on air. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Iman, for that tribute. I think both of you spoke about music, so maybe it's time to have a little musical interlude. Mama Kem, Mama Musimhlongo Nana Koyota, Rapi, Lucky Dube, Kunkaliga, Brenda Fast, Ingatati Kumayoke, Kangindi Sanonke. Ngithi amaku kunigalelo aspelenga aspelenga shot to see aspelenga All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eugene. That is the sound of Vusinova, another talented young South African as Pelelanga. How appropriate that every time one of us passes on, we are going to find that we are short of them. But may we find comfort in knowing that he lives amongst us and in all of us all. And let it be so for Bob. And we're going to shuffle the program around. The program you have might not follow the same sequence as the one you have. I am going to jump straight to Dr. Hosi Maepa, the regional chair of the ANC in Tshwane, to pay his tribute to Bob. Pretoria it was always in Bob's blood. So anybody who's from the city of Tshwane should carry a lot of significance on an occasion like this. Dr. Maepa.
Thank you, Bravik. Thank you for the opportunity, and to the BPI family. I greet everyone this afternoon. I'm also a member of BPI, also from its inception. I've been a member, so I will also take the cap of the ANC because you have said it. I was going to just go as a BPI, but Bob was also a part of our community of Tshwane, the African National Congress also in Atteridgeville. Let me say first of all that I want to send my profound condolences to the family, to the children of Bob Mabena, Lejema, someone who was extraordinarily special in many ways. not but just one way. He served our community in a special way. So to the family, I say condolences. We were there as the BPI family to see them 2 days ago. And I also want to say again that from the African National Congress, again, we particularly love Bob Mabena in many ways. I just want to give an example of how significant we consider Bob Mabena. At the funeral of Moses Mabida, most people know the stadium, they actually don't know the person. Moses Mabida is a former leader of the ANC. He served on the higher structures of the ANC, but also of the Communist Party of South Africa. At his funeral in Mozambique, before he was repatriated back to South Africa, Oliver Tambo spoke at the funeral of Moses Mabida, and he gave an example. He said Moses Mabida was a leader of the workers. He was a leader of the African National Congress of Mkhonto Sizwe, but also Moses Mabida was he led communities where he came from KwaZulu-Natal. He understood what is the meaning of working for all organizations equally, but collectively at the same time to achieve goals. I want to liken the words of Oliver Tambo and Moses Mabida on Bob Mabena. Bob Mabena was working in Atteridgeville for the forum to clean the whole Atteridgeville. He was working in Atteridgeville to set up radio stations for upcoming broadcasters. He was also a legend in terms of contemporary metro, you can call it a metro area broadcasting and radio. He was a pioneer of that. So he served the community of Atteridgeville. When he was needed to mentor Ayara young people, he was there. When he was needed at a high level to broadcast and to speak to various people in society, he was there. So he served in the industry individually all what he had to do, but all of them collectively to achieve greatness, which he will be remembered for. So I want to say with gratitude and also with fortitude that Bob Mabena to us represent far much more than just a radio broadcaster. He was likened to a person of the caliber of Moses Mabida in the ANC, who understood to serve each of the organizations individually, but all of them collectively. He served the BPI, he served in various organizations in communities of Atteridgeville and all over in Tshwane as well. So thank you for giving us that opportunity. May his soul rest in peace. We'll remember him. As the African National Congress, with time, we will note his name among the roll call of important names in Tshwane. And at a particular time, we'll remember him properly. For example, by assisting those who will want to establish maybe a center to train young broadcasters that will have to, in the memory of Bob Mabena, and would like to participate in that. But thank you very much. Condolences to his family, friends. I had opportunity to meet at the house people from former Radio Bob. To them as well, I say condolences, and to everyone else around Bob Mabena. Thank you for the opportunity, Bravik, and to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Maipa. I should also say thank you, Comrade Hosi, because you come in different guises. I was surprised that you chose BPI, but I'm not surprised knowing how much you love making a contribution to a debate, to a discourse. I don't think I'll have your energy in debate, because I've seen you carry so many debates, and at the end of a long debate, it looks like you could carry on. And it's important, because the quality of debate in our country is going to help us find solutions to many, many problems that still face us. So keep going and keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for gracing us with your presence and your wonderful message. And yeah, I can only agree that Bob was more than just a broadcaster. Media is something, as a platform, that is often given a bad name sometimes by people who reduce it to, I keep using the word celebrity. Media as a form of communication deserves a lot more respect than that. And as a media person or as a speaker, I know that I might be going through a bad day. But the one thing is, when you get behind the microphone, when you get in front of the camera, you get onto the stage, you've got to forget everything, because there are people in the audience who might be seeing you for the very first time. There are people in the audience who might be hearing what you're saying for the first time, or who might be looking forward to it in a way that you cannot even begin to contemplate. So Bob understood that. He was a mere mortal human being. He went through stuff like all of us did, even more in some cases. But he always remembered when he stood behind that microphone that he was now a servant of the people who were tuned in. He was a carrier and a harbinger of good news to most people, of encouragement. And who could forget his laughter, his infectious laugh, which almost made it sound like you could just get through anything. Maybe we should all learn to laugh like him. We might make it through this tragic phase. I'm going to move to somebody else who is quite a pioneer and a groundbreaking contributor to the heritage of South Africa and of Africa, particularly using the idiom of gospel music. But he is a brother, he's an entrepreneur, groundbreaker. I remember the first edition of Joyous Celebration. I can't believe that the man has kept going after all these years, and he has made this the feature, the enduring feature of the South African cultural landscape. Let's welcome, to say a few words, Lindelani Mkhize. Gubela, the stage is yours, Bob.
Oh, Sawana, Victor, thank you for the opportunity. I must say you're putting me on a spot there, because where one comes from, there was no gospel between me and Bob. It was before those times. I find it very hard to believe that we are gathered here to say farewell to the German, to say farewell to Bob Mabena. There are people who seem like they are beyond everything, and he was one of those. When there was no social media, he was already an influencer of note. I remember very well during that time, or there was a time when all the young professionals in this country, people who have just recently graduated, and I think I can also add to the chairman, Mr. Zungu, in that group, who were following and followers of Bob in a big way, based on the things that we used to do. He has touched so many lives, young and old, and he will forever live in our hearts. God gave us Mabena and his talent, and we'll always cherish that. And of course, radio will never be the same again. I will remember him for the fun, Ubumnandi Vita. I won't lie about that. And the many laughs that we had with Bob. I will remember him for his love for music and the beautiful music we actually made together. I will remember him for the unplanned convoys that we took with him and a whole lot of our friends during that time. I will remember him for the unplanned parties that we used to organize, especially when we hijack people's houses to create or to start a party and cause chaos, because at that time we didn't have the kind of venues that we now have to present, promote, and push the products that we have. Mabena applied passion on everything that he did. Right now, it seems like it was a crazy idea. Everyone is talking about get funky. And yes, that's what it was. It was just a crazy idea. Here we were a group of friends. Here I was working for the music industry. And unfortunately, at that time, we were having a whole lot of challenges when it comes to business of selling Black South African music in South Africa. Unfortunately, media was not being or supporting much of South African music. And one had to come with different ways to actually present and make South African music and get it to be supported by South Africans first, and get it on the ground and get it to be supported by the radio and the media at large. And one had to come with a whole lot of different ideas So the Get Funky idea, Dr. Khumalo and Bob Mabena, was actually born out of that, where I approached Bob as a friend to say, I'm having an idea here of getting two icons. Soccer was big then, radio was big then. You representing the radio on the other side, and Doggy is Dr. Khumalo representing soccer, because they both had a huge young and youth following to create something. And he embraced it. And at first I thought he was not going to understand what I'm talking about, because I remember very well then he had no ideas or no plans of actually being a recording artist per se. So he embraced the idea, and he was the first person I spoke to. Then together, I remember very well, we went to Dr. Khumalo's training ground, where we waited for them to finish training. And we approached him with this crazy idea. It was easy again, he was a friend, and believe it or not, Doctor just laughed at us. He just laughed at us. We took advantage of that. We then immediately went to the studio, just like that, and we started recording the song. Now, I had to make sure that since there was so much influence of international music, we kind of bring a bit of that into what we were doing, so that we'll be able to grab that market that is used to that. We wanted to also introduce hip hop and rap in South Africa, so Bob had to come in and rap. So we got a song by a group called Positive Force. And the title of the original title of the song is We Got the Funk. But when we turned it around to actually suit South Africa, we called it Get Funky, because we wanted to be played in every venue, in every party, in every wedding, in every function. Little did we know that it really was going to take off. Before we know it, and we were not ready for it, after it was released, it was the biggest song on radio. It was getting high rotation on radio. The next thing, unexpectedly, was the guys were getting bookings to go and perform, and that was not the plan. It was just supposed to be a studio concept. And that's where also most of the fun part happened, because we had to go out and promote the song. We had to accept the invitations. We find ourselves, I remember one day we were not even aware that they will actually end up on stage. They were not up for the stage, both of them, and they had to be on stage. And we were like, yeah, by the way, we had to get back singers, and they were our friends that were with there who we just got on stage. We still remember very well when we asked Abombali, who are now our managers, to actually come and be on stage and be the backing singers, because there is a Wendy's voice here and the female voices backing this song. So, but because the guys were easy, Bob was easy. He as much as he was worried that he's a brand, but he wanted to deliver and actually make it happen. Those shows happened, and then he started by performing, then go back to rehearse and prepare a performance, or so that his stage act should be something. Based on some of the incidents that actually happened, I gave him a nickname, and Bob loved his nickname, because somehow I made him believe that the nickname was actually a Zulu praise for a young man who's very good at what he does. And for a long time, he believed that, until recently I told him that, actually it's not that. I used to call him Machichi, and he loved the name, he embraced it.
Oh,
Little did you know what it actually means. Mabena, he had it all and made it very easy to get along with him. He was very inspired. He was very passionate. He was very motivated. He was a grateful individual and so open-minded. Thank you, Mabena, for giving me an opportunity to explore and work with your talent. To Umahadebe, Eucharist, thank you for taking care of our friend, taking care of the Gemma. We know what kind of a person he is and what you were actually facing there. We really appreciate you. May you please be comforted in the fact that he left a legacy. To the kids and the whole family, your father, Uyibegile Indubebandla, So it's up to you guys to take it and run with. Mabena was the pioneer of Black urban radio, and he made it happen. He surely will be missed. May his soul rest in power.
Kabaze, thank you very much. I had no idea you have always been a troublemaker. I had no idea you. Who would have known? I thought Joyous Celebration was groundbreaking on its own. And by the way, everyone who's listening to this and who's joined us on this broadcast, I know one of the most famous jokes in South Africa is celebration. And it's no, I'm being serious though. I'm sure I've spoken to you about this when you were my guest once. Everybody, let's just set the record straight. Linda Mkhize again, umuntu ozifakayo lapho ukuthi celebration. Kabazela, please just tell us what you do, just so that people understand once and for all. 30 seconds.
Joyous Celebration is what you can call an orchestra, an ensemble. Right. On stage at any given time, we have about 50 to 60 people on that stage. And with that number of people on stage, they should be given a direction, each and every one of them, from the singers in their different parts that they sing to the band, which is a full-fledged band. They should be given direction. So I do what is called directing the movement, the flow. When the song, sometimes when Kalisa, sometimes when I sing Kalisa, right? Because we direct and give the flow from the dynamics to the levels to the interpretation of the music. The person who's in front directing, because it's easy for these people to, especially because it's gospel music, to get into the spirit and do different things in a collective space. So in a nutshell, that basically
in a nutshell, you are protecting your investment. You are protecting your investment. You are looking after it as the originator. You are there, and it's a church after all. Thank you very much, Kabazet. We're going to play something from Joyous Celebration, but for now, just in tribute to the naughty executive that you were in music, let's hear the song that Bob was forced or hijacked into doing. All right. Veronica, are we going to get funky anytime soon? We
got Bob Mabena in the house, bringing back memories.
All right, there you go. Now we know the story behind Get Funky. I had no idea. I remember the song very well when it came out, Get Funky featuring Dr. Kumal. And I've got to tell you, it was a hard one to take as an Orlando Pirates fan, but what can you do? Music does these things to you. It unites everybody. And that was Bob just showing that the only limitation to what you can achieve often is your imagination. Thank you very much, Linda Mkize, and thank you for being the entrepreneur and the innovator that you are. By the way, I saw Victor Sbusiso Masondo joining us as that song was playing. I'm assuming, well, as the musician himself, maybe he heard the song and he joined us. Welcome, Mr. Masondo. You're one of our icons and our cultural activists and very treasured artists. Let's move on with the program and invite a broadcaster in his own right, a marketer, and overall media pioneer, someone who will have known Bob very, very much so for a very long time, who would have worked with him in different capacities. Shall we all ask Ben Dikobe to say a few words? Ben?
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek. It's been a while. Um, I don't know where to start actually, but maybe might as well just start on that Get Funky note. I was actually livid when that song came out, and I was listening to that song, and I heard my newsy's got the funk, and there was no Dikobe's got the funk. I was livid. I'm serious. I was upset. I was disappointed because I mean your name would be immortalized in that song. And and then I had a beeline with George, and I was like, George, man, no, 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 no. Why have I been left out? You know? And George tried to explain, but I wasn't having it. And true to form, he actually had a conversation with Mabena, and Mabena actually took the time to come in, and we had a conversation, a long conversation, trust me, a full-on conversation about why, what happened, and everything else. And needless to say, he was a diplomat as well. He explained it in a way that ultimately I understood, and I actually began also to appreciate the difficulty that was facing him when it came to the people whose names to include in that particular song. But well, that was the background behind that. But Bob Mabena, right? Komoto, as he was known. And those from Attridgeville and those who know him very well will tell you that he had his other name, this name that he disliked, almost hated, to a point of sin, called Apollo. Everyone in Attridgeville, the people that grew up with him, they used to call him Polo, Apollo, a derivative from Polo. And each time me and him had a form of an altercation or something, I would throw in Polo along the way, and he would respond in the typical Mabena-esque way at that particular time, which was, "Eh, naroaka na reg rot man. Wat hy braaf van me naroaka. Nata ubitsa yo." So he actually, I mean, he would, but we had a lot of fun, and he also gave me a lot of nicknames along the way. But Bob Mabena was, to me, he was a friend, he was a brother, um, he was a colleague, he was a music enthusiast. We enjoyed a love for music. We enjoyed a love for all things fine, and also we enjoyed a common love for the good old bourbon. Jack Daniels. He loved his Jack Daniels. He was also a former race driver, by the way, which is never. Well, I haven't had anyone mention it, recently, and I forgot to mention it in other interviews that I've had. A former basketball player, an avid one for that matter. And we used to have arguments, but we agreed on one thing: that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was one of the greatest basketballers of our time at that particular moment. The first time I met Mabena was actually the second time that I had met him, and I know that it revokes a certain amount of curiosity on that part. But the first time I met him, like actively met him, shook his hand and everything, was at the Radio Bob studios. Bob Broadcasting Studios are then. A very quiet, a lanky fella, very quiet and a little unassuming, but cagey as well. And you could see there was a bit of mischief behind those eyes. But a year later, we would remind each other where we first met, although, innocuously so, because we had met at Club Terama. I was still a student at the erstwhile University of Bophuthatswana, and we had gone to Atteridgeville, to have a good time and stuff. And there was this lanky young lady, very gorgeous lady on the on the dance floor, who was just dancing to every song that Mabena was playing. So, a friend of mine and I decided we were gonna try our luck and have a conversation, Remo Zame Zame and stuff. And then came this guy, who was a DJ at that time, who was on the decks at that time. He left the decks and came down and was like, "Me bras untse tipanyane nngwe so ya wa bona nail cutter." And tipanyana thing, me bras, just a warning, or this one is taken. And well, we left, we had a good laugh and everything else and left and didn't think much of it until we reminded each other years later, Reloko Radio Bob already, because I was narrating that story and he was like, "It's you and that light-skinned guy and blah, 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 blah." And we had a good laugh about it. And so was, a good friendship and a brotherhood actually cemented. Bob was a protector to all his friends, to his loved ones. It didn't matter how old you were or how young you were, but he was a protector of note. An anecdote in that event, I remember we had taken it. We were doing an outside broadcast in thingy. What's this? The erstwhile Pretoria show, and as we were doing that, so after the show, we agreed that, and we were sleeping over Ko Murula San, next to Mabopane. So we agreed, Hori, we were going to go out in the evening, Roja, and everything else. But he was tired, so he went back and, to take a nap. And now I was doing my show then. So I said, no, I'll come and pick you up later. I went to pick him up much later. After I picked up a lady friend, Horo Grubaba and stuff. So when we drove out of Ntwela Mabopane, that intersection, Hebrew, Nelly, Ntwela, Khabalatsani and stuff, we were turning to the left, we were going to town, of course. And there was this group of guys who, Baba Krositente, very haphazardly, and I almost hit one of them. And, had to brake and everything else. And then one of them, Abaruakana, like, I'm Pizaka lady, and Okasibiti Mushmana Motswana Kamahe. So we decided I parked on the side of the road. And these guys, I mean, it was a good number. I think there was about 5 or 6 guys, and it was only the 2 of us. So I'm like, my friend is like, "No, paka, me bra, let's go. No, 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 no. We must go and address this thing." And so we went in and went on our way to these guys. They're standing there. They're like, yeah, no, come. Yeah. Now, when on our way, he says, "What are we going to do?" I'm like, "I don't know, dude. What the like? Let's just straighten this out and everything else." And it's like, Sawar, taller than me and everything. And guess what he does? The first thing when he gets there, that this guy, the guy who was swearing at us, is still swearing as we're coming over and everything. And Bob Mabena unleashed a punch like a massive one. This guy dropped on the floor, on the ground. And then he's like, "Arsai," turned around. And I was like, what have I just seen? What have I just witnessed right now? And from then onwards, a group of friends, because I told this story to the buddies and everything else, and then we'd call him Tyson. We kept on calling him, yeah, this one, yeah, Tyson, Amura and stuff. And Bob was also a very generous man, generous also to a point of sin. My car broke down in Durban, with Durban Westville in the Gruvako thing and everything else. He was in Joburg already at that particular time, and I remember I called him. It broke down on a Saturday evening. Ronaldo was Rabeta Ukubong and Boles and Toko and stuff. So I called him on I think Sunday during the day, fella at home, and like, "Hey, say, man, I thought I was actually gonna come and see you along the way. You could fit the car and I see you and everything else. But now my car is broken down, so I think I'll actually just come in car, Basi, and then just shoot out straight." And he would never. He wasn't having any of it. He actually insisted, "No, you come through, and then gonna see and everything else." After he had actually said to me, "I'm gonna come and pick you up in Devon." I was like, "What?" It's like, "No, I'm gonna come and pick you up in Devon." I was like, "No, dude, you can't do that." Needless to say, when I got to Joburg, Mabena then insists. He says the first thing that he offered, he says, "Here, take my car, go back to work, Komafiking. I'll get sorted. Don't worry. Eke Jozi Mebra, we have public transport system is okay. Meter taxi. So take my car and go." I was like, no, dude. too much responsibility and everything else. And guess what he did afterwards? He actually offered, he literally took me, drove me down to Mafikeng, dropped me off, and then drove back to Johannesburg. And he was doing, by the way, he was doing a show on Monday morning. Such was the general spirit of the man that he never really considered, himself. He put everyone that he loved first, and you had to be very lucky about that. Some of our funny memories. I mean, some of my funny memories about him as well include, Thursdays there was this place in Pretoria called Gemini. There was this club in Gemini. It was banging on site on Thursdays. Mabena did the breakfast show called Radio Bob. Guess what we did, Vic? We would drive from Komafikeng, Kaboma 7 in the evening, drive down to Pretoria, go Gemini, and then Nosna N1. It was these tiny little roads and everything else. So it'd take us about a good 3.5 hours to get to Pretoria and Gemini. Have a good time, go Gemini. At about 2 in the morning, we then drove back to Mafikeng. We would get there and he'd only have enough time to get into the shower, get back into the car, and go to work. At 6 o'clock on a Friday morning, Asarwala and stuff. And those are the legendary stories that we used to share. And I know that, there are stories where at times he would feel so sleepy that he would keep himself busy by running around the building. The stories of him running around the building just to keep awake and everything while the songs were playing, go back into the studio and did stuff. But on a personal note, this was a very generous man. This was a very wonderful soul, a very beautiful soul, who was also very quick to rebuke. By the way, if you fell out of line, he was very, very quick to rebuke you, get you back on line, and remind you who you were and everything. And I remember when we started out, there used to be this competitive spirit, not only between me and him, but among us, as jocks on the radio station, the George Manyosis, the Sahale Mokosis, the Zandi Lenzalos. But he was a true trailblazer, in such a way that at some point when it got a bit toxic, he would obviously bring us back and guys, Arsalebalang, Arsalebalang. And on the trailblazing note, when our group went there, we were the young ones. We were very young in age, 20, 21. He was 19, by the way. The first one that went on air in that group, and we were called the kindergarten. Not for anything. And he would always remind us, of the responsibility that we had, not only to ourselves and our families, but also the responsibility we had to every young person who actually aspired to be on radio. So it was his call to us to always bring our A game, always bring your A game, always bring your A game. Very critical as well. And he wouldn't spare, a word for you. He would always tell you straight up, dude, no, I don't know you like this. I don't know this about you and stuff, but always very able to build. So he was a great guy. He was a wonderful guy. Loved music. Loved his children. By the way, he loved his children. He was a great father. I marveled at him. In that regard, I looked up to him as a mentor, sort of, as a great friend, as a mentor. He loved cooking as well. And recently in our trailer, in our WhatsApp group, all the guys who were at Radio Bob, he would always post, stuff that he was cooking, or hey, this is what I'm doing and everything else. So what are you guys cooking? What's happening? So he was that guy, wonderful, a brother more than anything else. And before my mom passed away, way back in 2015, Bob also had the time, used to take the time to come in, just pop in once, even if it was once a year, pop by fella and say hello ligai ma. And even at times when mom couldn't remember him, he would always remind her, and they would have this great moments. And then afterwards he would give me a call and say, oh, what's along? And I already knew at that particular time, or okay, so and we'd always have a good laugh because Nampolaisa Gahore at the time Nanyetsi and Hotin not because Hakanyala. o tshwantse a bue le nna. So yena na bolelela mama gore o ke yena a ganang and everything. So Namplace in that particular regard, but he was a great friend. He was a brother. He was and a great broadcaster, unparalleled in what he did, a trailblazer of note. Um, Different approaches. I mean, this is the guy that went on from music radio and ended his career sadly so and prematurely so as well. You know, at a talk radio station and doing a great job, by the way, doing a very very great job. So yeah, we've lost a great man. We've lost greatness. But I, we live with gratitude that we've had him for a good from us professionals, radio professionals, for a good 31 years. And we've had him. We've re mo antse enough and re itumetse. Le ha e le hore re utlwile botlhoko mare, we're very grateful for the time that we have spent with him, and we give love and our condolences to his family, to Eucharisti, more than anything else, because uh, I know that she has lost a paragon of strength in her life. She has lost a great man, you know, a great husband. Daima narata da usi na da usi tarata daimani. And you could see it. I mean, and everything. And at times they disagreed because and Eucharistic sometimes I'm and everything else. He knew how to disarm her and how to soften her and stuff. And I marveled at that as well. So to Eucharist and to the kids, to the family, lerato, strength, power. Ke a leboga, Bra Vicky.
All right. Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. You know, you nearly spoke like that guy at a wedding who comes in as the best man and always risks giving away some of the secrets they shouldn't give away.
Very close to it, isn't it?
That part about running around the building, you just splashed the whole legend across the floor, because we thought he was so big on physical fitness and he was just, and you are telling us it was because he would have been doing a night shift, now he's doing a day shift. But thank you.
But
thank
the trick
thank
is,
you very much.
Although the trick was very simple, Agiri, as much as he was great, I think it is also our responsibility to humanize him as much as we can, to bring the human element of Mabena, you know, so that people can
For
also
sure.
be able to relate to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bendi Kobe, a very accomplished broadcaster in his own right there. I never worked with Bob Mabena, I've got to emphasize that, but I got to interview him on February 15th in 2011. I was on 702, and I'm raising this because Ben just raised something about rebuking. Bob was very quick to rebuke and to intervene. One day in February 2011, he was on air at Kaya FM, and there was a defaming or defacing of the South African flag on the back of a rhino or something like that at a building in Boysons, if I'm not mistaken. And during the show, I think a listener dared him to do something rather than just talk. And Bob decided to go and picket on M1, the double-decker section, I think, or something like that. And he was encouraging other people to protest, saying, respect my flag. Now, why am I using this anecdote? It's because one man, when Bob left the studio at Kaya FM, he was actually live on air. So he just said, goodbye, I'm going. And one man who had to take over that show, because it was a live show, it was not recorded, was George Manyosi, who's going to tell us a bit about his time and fun and everything else he shared with Bob Mabena. George?
Yeah, how's it, Dennis?
Please tell us your memories, your fond memories and otherwise of your time with Bob Mabena.
All right, so we have interacted on radio. I was just thinking about this because I didn't highlight it in any of the other interviews I did. So Bob and I worked at Radio Bob, and then That would have been 1989 right through till December of 1991. Then we also rejoined at Kaya FM, and that was in 2001. For that whole year, I was at Kaya FM. Then I left him behind there. Then we rejoined at Kaya in 2010. That was April, the first weekend. And then, you know, he did the 180 show until he left me at Kaya, which is where I am currently. So those three different occasions, and I'm talking, it's well over, let me see, 10 years when you put them all together, easily about 10 years of working experience together at different platforms, Kaya FM and Radio Pop particularly. Now, first time I met him, I heard about him from one of our closest friends. When you talk about high school best friends, you know, you have that very core inner circle. All of us were pretty friendly in class, but then we related based on what our roots are, you know, over the weekends. And so that's how we ended up relating with certain specific people more closely than the others in the bigger group of friendship, you know. So that very inner core circle of friends in class included Ben Dikobe. I was in class with him in high school for a good 4 years, and that relationship ended up being one of the best friends that I had in high school. So he went to Radio Pop first. The other gentleman is Pierre Nyakale, who joined Radio Pop in the news team. Pierre was also in my classroom at high school and is one of those closest friends, right, for 4 years at school. So Pierre calls me, he says, Joe, you need to meet this guy. You have to know this guy and meet him because he's like you, he thinks like you, things that he does. And so, you know, I know you're going to love him, and I know you two are going to connect. And that's when I had to tune into Radio Pop and listen to this guy. And when I heard him, yeah, he sounded fresh, you know, Keith Sweat and all that, New Jack Swing and music there. And then what we did then is I monitored him for a good 3 months, just listening in. Then that very year, I also went up to Kaya, Ben calling me to come. So people are saying, you got to meet this guy. Ben Dikobe says, you got to come on board. I'm on radio, and this is where you belong, knowing our interests from way back when. So eventually, reluctantly, I ended up saying, okay, I guess I'm going to go to the radio. So meet Bob Mabena, we sit down, and we just start talking about, you know, our interests. And it turns out his teen years are similar to my teen years in interests in what we were watching on TV and what we were listening to in terms of genres of music. And incidentally, most of the stuff we were talking about musically was not even what was playing on Radio Pop. We knew some songs on Radio Pop from, you know, but we were not really consumers of Radio Pop, quite frankly. And we were consumers of another station's distribution, right? And so that's where we clicked with that different angle, different music that we were listening to. And we'd end up, man, just jamming. Oh, you know this? Oh, my goodness, how about this? So it was rock, it was pop, that kind of music. You know, we'd be jamming in that flat's kitchen, you know. I'm talking plates and pots and pans, forks and knives. We were just, man, percussion, we were just shouting and singing, you know, and we started gelling just like that on a very personal note. He was doing his show, I was doing my show, and then, you know, in a year's time, the station manager decided to join us together, and that's when we sat down, and I said, look, I'm gonna design a show and content around you because you're already a charismatic guy. We're not gonna change anything about you. Because I was joining him on the morning show, which he had already been doing for 2 years. So we're not changing you. You go on doing what you're doing, but we're going to add this and that and that and that. And that's where things started taking off as far as the Bob Mabena that you know now on radio. TV, he was already involved with TV there's a show on the beat that he was involved with. And, you know, Bob Broadcasting was beautiful because it was kind of like a bouquet, a very small place. And so when TV was doing something, they would say, we need presenters. And they just walk across and ask you. You know? And I did a few pilots and continuity TV. I felt a little too mechanical. It wasn't that spontaneous for me. Like, you know, sort of, okay, action and cut and hold on, okay, you know, a little makeup touch and whatever. I thought, no. Then lighting and it's still hotter. And Bob liked it. And so he was developing that side of it. He was being skilled and, you know, called to order and trained. And so he's a quick learner. And he is very quick to be corrected. That's why he naturally then would correct somebody, because he got it firsthand right there who had the broadcasting with all the other professionals who were working with us in on the TV side and in radio. You know, there was a lot of yes. Because we were joking around. We were young. I mean, he was 19, you know. We were young, and Jazz, it's time to get serious. Come on, Jazz. Okay, let's get together here. Come on, it's time to shoot. You know. So the older guys, the more experienced guys who were older in age as well, you know, would just kind of jab us and call us back to order, and then we would get back to work. So those kind of things were the real lessons that he did not undermine. He picked up on those, and when I listened to him and how he behaved, you know, over these last years, I saw a lot of that, because, you know, people end up asking, but how did he become what he is? Where did he get this? Where did he get that? And guess what? The warehouse was those 3 years in Mabatu, with the interactions with people who were already in the field. And but Bob was a quick learner, who was listening and was taking notes. And so when he came over to Metro, he was already cooked. He was well versed as far as work ethic and also dealing with people. And the beauty about Mabatu is it's a small area, but very warm. I mean, the people are so warm, welcoming, very kind, you know, and just a friendly township. And, you know, you basically, manners are the key. You greeted everybody from security to the cleaning lady. You had a chat with them. You got to know their background, because they'll be talking to you. If you don't initiate, they'll come to you. So there was no celebrity status from Mabatu. Everybody, you know, you say, I'm working, I better go Khasong, you know, you just work. It was another government department as far as people were concerned. So there's no celebrity. You're on TV, you're on radio, here we are, you know, that's how it is. So we were really down to earth. And we stayed down to earth when we moved out of Mabatu. It was just in us. And thanks to Mabatu and that whole environment, you know. You'd walk the streets, you didn't have a car, you had a car. It didn't matter. Where do you live? We're living together in these flats, you know. And so that's where the very close connection started in Mabatu. So the music side, his interest was very diverse. From home, he already had, you know, a lot of feed and input, you know, jazz, that's what it was. You had the Mbacana, you had all kind of music like that, right? And then, as I said, he listened to radio a lot, that side of home. When we got to Radio Bob, now we're listening to the stuff on Radio Bob because we're in the building. Now we go into what we call the library back then, because it was still the vinyl, you know, days. And you're just fishing and looking at the titles, the albums, and, you know, you're just picking them out, and you're listening to the stuff, and you're exploring, and then you're picking up sounds that you didn't hear before. And now you're getting, you see, you're just adding to that whole knowledge of music. And so that's where that whole variety is. Plus, remember that we got spoiled, because when you look at, musically speaking, at the turn from 80s into the 90s, I mean, we had the 80s sound, the disc sounds, and now we're moving into the 90s. Now you have New Jack Swing. You have, you know, the gangsta rap was coming in, and then you have the UK sounds, the, you know, Stock Aitken Waterman, the sounds, the upgrade from, you know, O10 CT. I tell you what, the new wave of different sounds adding to what we already had. And so that's why I say we were pretty spoiled, because we were right there at the crossroads. And so we were able to play both, you know, the old and the new. And all that came in handy. When it was time for him to come to Joburg, let me just tell you something personal. This guy refused to come because he was called by Koskadebe from Metro. And at that time, I was doing the morning drive show with him. Had a vision and all that. We were working. We were already 1 year into it. And Kos calls him and puts an offer on the table. He then comes back and obviously, you know, the station manager at Radio Bob, WTP, says, no, man, don't leave, whatever. Look, you know, financially, don't worry. We will compensate, we will match or do whatever they're negotiating there. But the guy will not leave. He didn't want to leave. He was sentimental. He found a home in Babatu. Then he also found a home at Radio Bob and Bob TV, you know, and friends, and his girlfriend then, Zandile Nzalo, you know, things were pretty good. It was comfortable. And this Kos guy messed up our little vision, our little plan, because he had been listening for a long time, for these 3 years, and you know, he was scouting for this talent. And he said, well, all I needed in my lineup is this guy. If we can get this guy, then we are complete at Metro. We're going, you know? So, long short, the reason he left for Metro was because we kicked him out. That was Zandile and myself. We literally had to kick him out. I shared the bigger vision with him, which we had shared before anyway, before we even joined on the same station, on the same program. You know, when we met the first time and we were talking weeks on end about this commonality, the interest that we have on a personal level, we just started sharing a lot of things about radio. And then when we got together to do the show, then it was time to redefine what is radio to us. We are now radio. So what are we going to do now? The things that we dreamed about, the things that we liked, we're going to do that here on Radio Bob. That's what we're going to do. Forget what the status quo is, what we're hearing from all the other people on air. We're going to come up with our own show. So when Kos called, I had to remind this dude. I said, remember, there's a bigger picture here. You think if Kos had called me, I would still be here with you? No, I'll be calling you from Joburg. So get out of here. That took quite some conversation. It took about 2 weeks. And eventually, he left. That was December 91. 92, he was on Metro. And by the time he got that side, man, I mean, the people were surprised. He blew up. When you hear the stories from Robert Marawa talking about this was a superstar, and he went straight into, you know, the primetime slots, top positions at Metro, and was given full support by the station management. I mean, advertisers went crazy. They wanted his voice, his appearance. He just went big, but we were not surprised. Personally, I was even not surprised enough because he already had the substance. He had so much content, and he was trained. He had the skills, like I said, and also just the work ethic and everything else, the discipline. So by the time he got to Joburg, he was already a product waiting to explode on a bigger platform. That's it. And that's what happened. The rest is history.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Joe. You know, it's amazing. As a writer, I'm so sad that I'm hearing these accounts about someone I knew, and I just didn't know all these dimensions, and they defined him. They made him who he was. The vision that you are sketching right now from his days at Radio Bob, we just listened to him, and we had a DJ, yeah. But you had the joy of knowing him and getting him, bailing him out when he got himself arrested in 2011. And it's a very wonderful, it's a beautiful story. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. And may you continue. I know we used to say Georgie Porgy when you were at Kaya, and I just didn't know the connection between you two. But thank you very much, my brother, for coming out and joining this family.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you again to BPI, Broad Pool of Ideas Foundation, for bringing us together. Thank you. Those of you who are continuing to join us, we see you. Thank you very much for joining and being part of this memorial service for Bob Mabena. It's COVID-19. We are in lockdown. We are not able to meet the way we ordinarily would. And sadly so for a Pretoria boy, because I know how Pretoria boys can party. Banality V-sin ons, even a funeral they convert into a V-sin ons, like a place where they go after the funeral to have a good time. And that party doesn't end until the sun shines the next day. Let's bring in another one, MC, presenter, broadcaster, master of ceremonies, motivational speaker, and a wonderful South African, a sister. Cindy Mabe, are you there? Cindy Mabe, I saw you join us, but now it looks like you are not there, which is going to leave me with a lot of waffling to do. I would rather not waffle. Cindy?
Is
Oh, there she is. You see
better?
now.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
I'm here.
Go
Can
ahead,
you hear?
please. We can hear you. This is the normal, ordinary question of Zoom meetings. We can hear you, Cindy. Share your message, please. As they say, unmute yourself. Cindy remains mute. Veronica, please unmute Cindy.
Okay, I've unmuted myself. Is this better?
That's
I'm
much
lucky.
better. Go ahead, go ahead.
Please pardon me. It's just we also have load shedding in parts. So, but I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to join family, friends, colleagues, some were even former bosses or former employers. So I have to be on my P's and Q's and make sure that I try and represent Bob the Jammer properly without without causing any career harm to myself going forward. So thank you. Thank you all. Ravicta, you know, my contribution to Bob Mabena, number one, maybe let me give you the context very quickly. And I know previous speakers had mentioned his generosity to a fault, that he knew how to recognize love, replicate love, and also give love. So all about him was extending the networks, extending the space, extending the possibilities. So here's a Cindy Mabi who was a novice really, having just come out of SABC Northwest after it had amalgamated, or rather joined into the new dispensation. So I had an opportunity to work very briefly at SABC Northwest for about 3 years. And I hadn't met Bob Mabena then. I'm not as old as Bob Benedi Kobe, bagolo bale, kore bale ke di time, enough respect. So my career was a little bit later into the 2000 at least. So I met Bob Kokaya FM. I think he was programs manager then. And he saw this young person who had been retrenched from the airline, wanting to get into broadcasting. And literally, he just propelled me into the deepest ocean I could ever find myself in terms of career opportunities that come to you so quickly, so rapidly, so forcefully that it blows you away. Says to me, why don't you stand in for, it was then Ridi Direko, who was working with Lawrence Dube. And you can stand in on the drive time. You've got the personality, you have what it takes. You just need to build a little bit of confidence, do your preparation, etc. Long and short, so what that had done had given me that sense that your own limitations, your own limiting beliefs, somebody else is able to see through all of that, through the nerves, through the insecurity, through the self-esteem issues, and just say, you know, I see better, I see greatness in you, I see the light in you. You just need somebody to kick you off the cliff so you can get over your excuses, as it were. So from there, Kaya FM happened. I was then on SABC, ETV, and had an illustrious television and broadcasting career for 20 years. But there is something in between, and I must just put filters, Pravictor. I have to put filters and put a disclaimer to say the fun side, yep, Bob, as much as he's a hardworking and very disciplined, dedicated to his work, meticulous in preparation, and intellectual par excellence. But he's also the business side and the fun aspect of his career, that of being the jammer, very world renowned for putting a party ablaze where revelers don't want to go home. I had the honor of being a singangares. Wa bona kere go na le dinganga. Singanga, singangares would be the ladies but tshwarang di bag as a groupie. Le wena o tshwere bag ya di final gore o khone o thola di back pass and then be able to just be in that the space of greatness. So these were one or two events that he had hosted in the early days that I had been part of. But what that had shown me was just how magnificent and how great his stardom is. The frenzy that he would create amongst crowds and people wanting to pull at every part of him and wanting, the screaming almost to a point of people being incapacitated because of the love that they had for his work, let alone once he starts spinning the vinyls, then the party is literally lit. So that was my personal experience, and I just want to add to what the other speakers. Ben mentioned that he loves to cook. His expression of himself and his ability to give really knows or knew no boundaries. There hadn't been a classification of why he would do certain things. He didn't even need much motivation. He would be the first one to want to offer and do for you, whether you deserved it or not. If you ask nicely enough, it would be done as such. So I like the humility aspect, because sometimes we get lost in our own titles, in our own significance, or who we think society or the pedestals that we are put in. But here's a great man who, in his own right, is a megastar. He's a legend. He's an icon, globally renowned, and yet he had the humility of just the guy next door, Kilawan, and had the accessibility as well. So I just want to say to the family and to the children and to colleagues, our deepest condolences. It doesn't make sense. We know death is unpredicted, and usually it's difficult to accept. But we just want to share in the tribute and the love that Bob the Gemma had displayed, and the humility and the excellence in demonstrating your art and craft without necessarily being distant from other human beings. So I really want to say thank you to BPI for the opportunity and for setting up this particular occasion. And may you all be safe and well during these difficult times. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Cindy, for reminding Ben and I and everybody that we are old, as if our bald heads don't remind us enough. Senganga res. Okay, I've got that. Now I've got that. I get it now. Senganga res. Senganga res. So you were the one who would also be there till the sun shines the next day.
I didn't say I was the only one, by the way. That's why I'm glad I stayed on the line to correct anything that might just need to be ventilated further. Not necessarily. No, but we had a curfew, Kohesu, so I'm one of those kids that are born in a family selling, with a mother who comes from a small town,
Right.
who didn't have a lot of world experience. So Koyana, anything that was beyond 9 o'clock busiu already was the next day. So
all right. Well, then I know in your dictionary the word trouble has a synonym called Bob Mabena. Thank you very much, Cindy Mabe, for the wonderful
all right,
message.
thank you.
All right. You know what? We've been talking quite a while. Bob Mabena had a favorite song, or a song that almost could be synonymous with him. Let me see if I got this one right. Veronica? Okay.
Hi, brother. We're still organizing the song, but we can replace it with something inspirational.
No. We let's move on with the speakers. We will get it afterwards.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we are here courtesy of BPI, Broad Full of Ideas. And we are going to line up the next speaker, and then we will play the song afterwards. The next speaker is part of BPI, Broad Pool of Ideas Foundation, but she's also a psychologist in her own right, strategy lecturer, customer experience consultant, somebody who all people in the media, if most of the people in the media will know, because she follows what happens, she reacts, she sends feedback, and she will call you out if need be. Dr. Sibongile Vilakazi.
Thank you so much, Victor, and hello and welcome everybody. It is actually such an honor to be in this platform today and representing one BPI, but also paying tribute to a man that has been, I don't know, larger than life. Similar to Cindy, I also knew Bob from TV, from radio, and he was a certain figure. And as you know, we tend to think of people who appear in the media in certain ways sometimes, and we see them as celebrities. And in my mind, Bob was a celebrity until I got to work with him in the BPI, or BPI brought us together. And I was quite humbled by his humility. And how ordinary he was, because in my mind he had been the celebrity, but he actually wasn't in real a celebrity. So getting to know Bob close up like that was very special. It wasn't for too long, unfortunately. The BPI has only been 2 years old. It's a young think tank foundation. But in that 2 years that it's been around, it has managed to hit above its weight, mainly because of the people it has attracted, people like Bob Mabena, who are willing to put their time, use their networks and their resources to advance what the platform stands for. So, and I mean, I'm part of the advisory team in the BPI, and every now and then we've been organizing specific initiatives. And those initiatives, we call on people's favors and, you know, the goodness of their hearts for some of the things to be paid for. And Bob was always there, willing to do all of these things that we would be asking him to do for free. He became our resident MC, DJ in all the activities that we were doing. He was there DJing, and he did it all for free, all because to advance what the BPI is standing for. And even in the platform itself, in the group, we tend to chat a lot in the group. We've got a lot of great minds in that group, people from business, from academia, from everywhere, from the media and everywhere. And every now and then ideas come up that you think, wow, you know, this idea needs to be known. I didn't know that. And Bob was one of the people who would take those kind of ideas further and be able to expose them in the media. And also individuals who were doing great things. We would hear about them, either they'll be part of the group itself, or it's somebody who would talk about someone else who's doing great things, and Bob would be able to take that person, expose that person on air, which was like really invaluable, especially for a platform that is growing, that needed that kind of profiling. Bob played that role for the BPI, and it has been able to attract most of the minds that it has been able to attract, simply because of that, because it had people who were willing to go out there and advance what the cause, basically. We are really saddened by Bob's passing. We've lost quite a lot as a platform. And hopefully, you know, sometimes when one person passes on, another person comes forward and almost do what the other person would have done. We are hoping for that. We are hoping that we will have individuals who will step up and take the legacy, Bob, forward on our behalf in the platform. And so we also would like to really say condolences to the family. It's a, I mean, when I found out from the group, funny enough, and I thought, no, it was probably just a joke. And then I switched on the TV and I saw the breaking news, and I was just shattered. So I can imagine what the family is going through as well. They're shattered, and the friends, people who were close to him, We are really saying, Dudu, it's not only you in Lahlegelwe sonke kuBob, and we are really hoping and praying that his legacy will live on. It's not every day that you meet people like him who have every reason to be pompous, every reason to think of themselves as important individuals, and yet they don't do that. They relate with everybody on an equal basis. It's rare. We are really silahlekelwe as a country, but I mean, we must continue. It is what it is. Hopefully we'll use his memory, so invoker, he'll be a good ancestor to us. And sim invoke, which we are calling on the spirit of humility, spirit of love, and spirit of giving that Bob showed us. So thank you so much for this platform.
Thank you very much, Sibongile. A very loyal listener, by the way. I must tell you, if she listens to your show, she's gonna call you out, and if you don't let her call through, she's gonna tweet you.
Oh my God, I made an impression there on you. Apologies.
No, I have to give this feedback because we have to make people understand that when we broadcast not for ourselves. And if you are genuine, you should listen to the feedback that listeners give you. And I'm very pleased that you were able to get through and get Bob to make a contribution beyond just contributing, because the way I understand broad pool of ideas, these are people thinking South Africans, doing South Africans, very passionate patriots who would like to see things happen, but are dynamic and are willing to listen to others. And that if we had those qualities in South Africa today, half of the problems we have would be gone. So thank you. Thank you very much. She's a psychologist, so I'm sure she psychoanalyzes all of us when we are on air, so we have to be careful. I am going to be asking for the song to be played after, but let's go to 360 Global Solutions Group, and someone who has a good track record especially in the health space. He's been with the National Union of Mine Workers Company, saving it literally from liquidation, if I'm not mistaken, 10 years or 12 years ago when we had the global credit crunch. Let's say welcome to Kandani Msibi. Welcome. The stage is yours. Share your message for the family and friends of Bob Mabena.
Thank you very much, Program Director Victor Khomoswane, and thank you to the BPI for organizing this event and inviting me to share my thoughts and my experiences with Bob. To the family of Bob Mabena, I've been a friend to your departed loved one for just over 3 years, and I cannot in any way compare my loss in his departure, in his early departure, to a loss of a husband, a father, and he's standing amongst other extended family members. May you accept my heartfelt condolences. In Bob's early departure, I've lost a friend with whom I was beginning to form a very strong bond around a subject of mutual importance, that we shared something with Bob, which is the subject of the economic emancipation of Black people. We used him as a group, as an MC for the 40th anniversary of a medical fund and the first Imbizo of 360 Global Solutions Group. And he has been a friend since. I think that event resulted in us having mutual admiration for each other's passion for our people. And he shared with me a lot of interventions that he has made on behalf of young people. And I shared with him a lot of interventions that I have made on behalf of young people in order to help them progress. And we were having these discussions in Rosebank, reminiscing about the lack of progress, and we were beginning to become regular until COVID happened. And all of those engagements, Bob will always be the first one to call it a day, that he needed to take his long journey to Pretoria. And there's something that I don't understand about the people who live in Pretoria, that even if they work in Johannesburg, they never leave Pretoria. They always drive to Pretoria every day. And I must say that Bob's commitment to his family and his wife was always paramount in the towards the end of our conversation, that Mchana, I need to go home to my family. But I lost a comrade in arms in Bob, and I think he's pulled another one on me where he needed to leave in the middle of a conversation, because the conversation is not over, because the things that we want to achieve, we have not achieved. And I would like the family to bear with me a little bit, because I would like to engage with Bob as a friend, right? And give him a message, the party message, that as he calls the day on this earth, that he needs to take a message to 5 giants of our movement, and those that are our forebearers, right? And I'll start at the top with Oliver Tambo. That Bob, please tell Oliver Tambo that if he were to rise from the dead and go campaign for the ANC amongst our people, he'll be met with questions that are difficult to answer. These questions will range from the failure for service delivery, accusations of corruptions and internal fighting in his movement. Tell him that the most profiled event in the country is about the mutual harassment and persecution of ANC members in a commission they call themselves, which is named the Zondo Commission. Tell him that this commission risks ending ANC's remaining reputation. Tell Dr. Oliver Tambo that the ANC does not have a youth league anymore. Instead, the rival party was started by former ANC youth league leaders who were dismissed from the ANC. And since their time, there has not been a credible youth organization in the ANC, and does not even appear to be any intention to revive it, leaving the ANC very poor in terms of internal debates. Tell him that some amongst us fear that the ANC may be one of the few liberation movements that may lose power within half a century of taking power from former liberators. Tell him that 25 years later, the ANC has not used its power to change the economy. Tell him that white people have made more money under the ANC rule than under the National Party. Tell him that the black business which existed and struggled under apartheid is fast disappearing and is now replaced by white business which have been christened into a black business, that being born black is no longer enough to be black, but rather you have certain qualifying criteria in a triple BE contribution. Tell him that the land is not yet back, that the movement has lost the initiative on land, and they are busy with definitions that are not progressing the primary mandate of the ANC. Do make time for Ndate Semutsonyana and tell him that we've lost all the talk shows, and we have no uniting views about interpreting this event and what to do about it as black people. And that's the extent of the poverty of leadership that we are suffering from. Tell him that just like in the apartheid state, the democratic state does not subsidize the black taxi industry, that his successors have to compete with subsidized buses, but which are now subsidized by the democratic state run by our liberators. Tell him that the taxi industry has not progressed from where he left it. Instead, most owners are indebted and they suffer repossessions of their vehicles on a continuous basis. Tell him that whilst he could venture into creating a bank, our generation, which is more educated than his generation, has failed to take that vision forward. Tell him that all banks that used to exist under Homeland rule have been closed or absorbed into white banks. I would also like you to do me a personal favor and make time to meet Dr. Mutlana and Tate Mabena, who are the founders of Sizwe Medical Fund. Tell Dr. Mutlana and Tate Mabena, as a founder of Sizwe Medical Fund, that the medical scheme they started in 1978 is facing yet another existential threat from a regulator who is an arm or an agency of the democratic state. Tell them that it's becoming clear that Black business is not allowed to operate, to have an independent existence outside of a white business, that it is not allowed to compete with white business by regulators appointed by the democratic state, and that the role we're supposed to play is that of being juniors to white business in what is called triple BE. Tell them that in creating the regulatory agencies, the democratic state has not given them a transformation mandate. Tell them that some of us can argue that on the basis of the actions of the regulators and the non-transformational outcomes in the industries they regulate, that they are the instruments of maintaining the apartheid status quo. Do also meet the first president of COSATU, and Dr. John Komomo. Tell Dr. John Komomo that COSATU has been weakened from being a federation of large industrial unions to a public sector federation due to the dismissal of NUMSA and the resignation of FAO. Tell him that we now have two federations that claim the same ideological lineage, and how this has weakened the voice of the working class in the country's discourse. Do also meet Dr. Lawton Ndlovu. Tell him that young people have a reason to believe that education is useless. Tell him that they are languishing at home with degrees in all sorts of studies, including engineering, lest he assumes that they have useless degrees. They are engineers and scientists. Tell him that by not emphasizing entrepreneurship, but preparing us to be managers of white companies, we find ourselves where we are stuck with qualifications and corporate experience and yet unemployed. Tell him the mission of a Black managerial talent has been achieved, but that managerial talent, that Black managerial talent, is sitting at home unemployed. And in conclusion, Program Director, as a group and myself as a person that has met Bob a couple of times and building a bond with him around a subject of Black economic emancipation, I will continue to cherish his memory in my heart, and we will all continue to be reminded of him when we listen to Power of FM or any other radio station that he has worked for before FM. I pass my deeply felt condolences to the family, and please accept them with kindness. Program Director, I'm not the one given to the ideas of funerals and the memorial services and celebration of life, but I prefer them as a moment of reflection, of lessons to be learned, regrets to be expressed. As a group, one of the companies we own, the founding company of the group, is a Doves Group, which is a funeral service company. And we also own a whole lot of companies that are in the higher stages of life. Our strategy, which Bob appreciated, was to move away from barriers to encourage life, right? To move away from looking at making money when we bury people, but to say we would rather you live longer, and as a result, we started investing in healthcare and in biotechnology. We are therefore deeply offended when the candle of life is extinguished before the age of 80. It is our belief that in our group, when this happens, and it is called natural death, the family should consider carefully if the ailment does not exist elsewhere amongst other members to avoid another of such event happening. I think that is the most practical way of honoring the deceased, so that we learn and say our father, our brother, our uncle has passed on as a result of a particular ailment, and we will do the test. We'll go and see the medical doctors and understand if it is possible that as a result of him having the ailment, we may be having the ailment either by genetics or any other means. And I think it is an important part of understanding what actually happened to our dear friend and your family member. I would like to thank the family of Brabob, the children and friends for sharing him, for shaping him to be the man that I've come to meet and allowing him the space to interact with us unselfishly. Your big loss in him is also a loss to us as well. And may you be comforted in the knowledge that he represented you well amongst us. And please accept again our heartfelt condolences, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much. I'm saying thank you, although you just put a huge IOU in front of me. You know, whenever you mention the people who have come before us and how much we have betrayed them, it's like asking us to sign the acknowledgement of debt. Because if they came back and said, we want to collect what you all owe us for our sacrifices, you are a businessman, you know our balance sheet will be wiped out before we get to pay off one person. And we would still owe so much more. Thank you. Thank you very much for that challenging contribution and for also giving it the spin of celebrating life, as well as ensuring that we live a better life, because I know Bob was very keen on talking about what people do while they are alive, not after they would have gone. And he lives in us indeed. I said earlier on that Bob has a song that could almost be considered synonymous with him. And all the music people here, George Manyosi and everybody, if I got it wrong, please forgive me. But I suspect that if Bob were to be represented by a tune, this would be one of the top contenders, if not the topmost contender.
You wanna know? Act just like you know. Whoa, just ought to know. Yeah. When you're feeling down and low, and you need a place to go. Oh, just pick up your shoes and go to the hottest place you know. Oh, where you can free your mind and have a good time. Just step right up, hurry, hurry, hurry. To the fire light, like you know. This is your way to shine, like you know. There's only something to fire light, you know. When the stars are real, so kicking up your heels. Yeah.
All right, we don't seem to be doing very well. Believe it or not, it's load shedding that is affecting some of the transmission, but I'm sure you get the picture. From the city of brotherly love, it's a city called Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, United States, and you know the history of that city and the human rights culture and the democracy that America is associated with, could be associated with. 1976 hit, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not even sure how old the song was, but Bob would have grown up in Pretoria hearing it, and he adopted it. Every time he was on air, I'm sure you would find, well, it was a 1982 song, sorry, not 1976. 1982 hit Act Like You Know by the Fat Larry's Band from Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, USA. I just found that every time I listened to him, it didn't matter which station, there would be a way that song would show up, and it would almost become a signature tune. I'm happy to be corrected after this. And this was our way of ushering a family member who's going to deliver a message. We're going to call on the brother of Bob, Mabena, Mabena, to speak to us. Mpo, welcome and condolences, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's been a very, very hard week, eh? Hello?
Mpo?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, it's been a very, very hard week, eh? Thank you for your condolences. Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, we are here.
Okay.
Speak to us,
Yeah.
Mpo.
Okay, cool. What I would like to say about Bob is that Bob was a humble, loving, kind person, and I grew up with him. And, you know, for me, such a loss because he's my cousin, and he was also my friend. So me and him, we were always together all the time. He was my go-to person, you know. Bob taught me music, and in exchange, I started giving him music, you know, because I got more deep into music. So hence we were together all the time. Our love was just, I can never have, you know, as siblings, most siblings don't get along. They can't stand each other. But me and him, we got along like, I don't know, hey? Yeah, so yeah, it's such a loss, hey? For me and the family and South Africa as well.
Do you remember? I remember when he was on Paul, he used to prank people. He used to make prank calls to people.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was on Highveld. I can't remember. I remember him prank calling. I remember him prank calling a Mr. Mabena, who I believe was his cousin. Was that you? Was that you?
Yes, it was me.
I just remember now when you said cousin, because at the end he explained that I had to prank my cousin. So you think siblings and cousins did get along? Apparently he didn't get along with you if he played that big joke on you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let me just compose myself. I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but his body just arrived at home.
No. You take your time, because that's why I'm trying to mediate a conversation here, because I want to try and get you to be in a space where you can. Do you need to take some time by yourself, or? All right. I think, okay, Veronica, we may want to do something, have a musical interlude, because we have come to the end of our speakers. Mpo was the last one. The Braik Pasha also suffered the same fate. Right, Ike Pasha, everybody knows him. Ike Pasha, who was with Sandparks at one stage, but he's a very celebrated radio personality himself. He's been like Bob on just about every station there is to be on. He has been on TV. He has done music, which I still identify him with. But he has also, like Bratim, like Bob, migrated from being just DJs as we knew them to being talk radio hosts, which took a lot of evolution and adaptation, because talk radio evolved. It happened to us. We didn't expect it. There was only 702, to be frank. And when 1994 came, there was such a pressure now to suddenly have talk radio. And it was very difficult for people who would have been DJs to switch and make that transition. Braik was just one of those. He made a transition to talk, and Bratim Mudise was another. Lawrence Dube also, if you remember, Lawrence Kabani. By the way, the man who got me onto mainstream media or mainstream radio at Kaya FM in 2005, I think, 2005, 2006. But he was one of those who made the transition. Unfortunately, load shedding happened. And when Mr. Msibi was talking about service delivery and letting our people down, this is just that. But the reason Paul couldn't finish, one was that Bob had just arrived at home, and I think he got overwhelmed. I'm sure we will all understand that. But he was with us, the family was with us. Let me reiterate my condolences, and let me just ask that we close the way we opened with a prayer. But before we do that, let me just ask you to ponder this. Benny Anderson and Bjorn Albius were the two men who were behind the group called ABBA. It was a Swedish quartet, 2 men, 2 women, and they wrote a song called Thank You for the Music. And I would like, as we close, for all of us to ponder the words of the song. The words are, in fact, they start as follows. I am nothing special. In fact, I'm a bit of a bore. And if I told a joke, you probably have heard it before. But I have a talent, a beautiful thing that everybody listens when I start to sing. Then it goes on to say, my mother says I could talk. I began to sing long before I could talk, and I started to walk long before I could talk. I started to run long before I could walk. And I've often wondered, how did it all start? Who found out that nothing can capture a heart like a memory can? Well, whoever it was, I'm a fan. And the chorus goes, thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Who can live without it? I ask in all honesty. So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. And although Bob became a talk radio host, I believe that all of us here can identify with his musical side. And he did sing, he sang his heart out from his days at Radio Bob to when he was at Power FM at the time of his passing. And I'm sure that, as I mentioned before, and as the wise people say, he lives in all of us now. And all we have to do is to look at ourselves, to look deep within ourselves. We will find him. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Veronica, the board advisory for broad pool of ideas, Veronica Mutlodzi, to close for us with a prayer.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much. And thank you for everyone who joined in to say what they know about our brother Bob. He used to call me a girl from Soshanguve because he really enjoyed me speaking my Spitori language. Like you, Victor. Thank you for allowing my Spitori really to twist your arm and to be the program director. I really appreciate you and always being available for me, even last time. But I know that it was not really about the BPI only, but our brother Mabena and some of the relationship and the engagement that you really shared. Thank you very much. May the Lord continue to bless you. I also like to thank all the speakers who made time to share their memories and experiences with Bob Mabena. Thank you for sharing your all, and I really appreciate that. I just want to acknowledge the people that made this possible. I will start with Nkosana. Unfortunately, he's not there. He's not here. He's in Bloemfontein, also bearing a family member. Thank you for championing this program and event so that we honor our brother. As they have said, Bob Mabena was part of the BPI, an important part of the BPI. He ran all our events and gave us a platform, even on air, to talk about our issues of economic empowerment. And like as Dr. Kandani has said, we share most of the views or all of his views with regard to economic empowerment. Where I am, I'm sorry, the network might not be good because there's load shedding. And we talk about 4IR and we've got digitalization, you know, and there's issues of energy, electricity, and we wonder how we'll balance the two. But those are the issues that we are dealing with in our nation, and we need solution bringers in order, and we need to engage very strongly with our government. The issues of corruptions and everything are costing us, and it costing us the idea to really leapfrog and be there and also participate economically. Thank you to everyone who participated, the music, Ntate Eugene Montana, thank you very much for providing the music, the planning team, Ntate Greg Mufokeng, we really appreciate what we have done for this event, the programs, the invite, thank you very much. Professor Matebula, for guiding even this exercise as well as speaking on media with regard to this event. Ntate Mzwandile Radebe coordinating all the speakers. We really appreciate and everyone, if I haven't mentioned your name, don't take it personally. It's just that I'm trying to deal with the network issue. Everyone who has contributed and participated, thank you very much. So we will then close in prayer. Father, we just want to thank you for this time, my Lord. We thank you for our brother, the time we shared with him here on earth. We thank you, Lord, for all the experiences that we really had with him. And we pray that what he stood for, Lord, will be taken forward, Lord, what he believed in, the issues of economic emancipation, the issues of corruption in our nations, the issues of not fulfilling the promises of our leaders, Lord, that, Lord, this work will not stop here, but will be taken forward. That, Lord, you will raise leaders who will help. You will raise men and women who will take the message forward, who will be courageous and bold and speak these things, Lord, until they are realized. Father, we pray for the family that you will comfort them during this time, Lord, as they are about to send their brother, Lord, to his resting place. We pray that, Lord, you will encourage them and heal them. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. Thank you, Brother Victor.
Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. You made this possible. And thanks once again to BPI and the leadership and all the speakers. We will be thinking about Bob, and he will be in all of us. Let's look deep in ourselves, and we will find him there. He's not dead. He's just moved on to the other side. So he just crossed over to the other side. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah, you ought to know, act just like you know. Whoa, just ought to know. Yeah, when you're feeling down and low and you need a place to go. Oh, just pick up your shoes and go to the hottest place you know. Oh, where you can free your mind and have a good time. Just step right up, hurry, hurry, hurry to the fire line, like you know. This is your way to shine, like you know. There's only stars in the fire line. When the stars are real, start kicking up your heels. Yeah, you ought to know. Well, well, well. The fashion is just to kill, so if you dance, put on your dancing wear. Yeah, and you'll find yourself under a light that'll make you have to try.
Stop. 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 Stop.